Hello and welcome back to Analysing Avatar, the podcast where we analyse the TV show Avatar The Last Airbender. I'm joined as always by Chris Billingham, who I'm very excited to be speaking to. I will say, we are uncharacteristically not warmed up because we connected...
I mean, how much does the warming up usually help, Dan?
So for context, for people who don't know, we don't record in the same room. We live a little bit too far away to do that as regularly as we do podcasts. So we do it over the...
That shocks you because the chemistry is so strong it sounds like we're in the same room. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Very sweet of you.
Thanks, listeners. Very sweet. You're right. We are great.
Best.
It's a very different tone for us. Normally we're just like, this is the worst thing. Why do you listen to this? Today we're like, we're amazing. But we're a little short on time today. So it was like, hi, how you doing? Good. How are you? Good. Should we record? Yep. So we've had...
It wasn't even that, mate. It was, I mean, that's nice. It was literally, how you doing? You? Yeah. All right, well, let's just get... Not with each other. Not at all with each other. Just like general outside forces mood.
Yeah, we're both quite busy. Yeah. So there you go. So we're back to talk about Avatar: Last Airbender. We're hitting season 2. It's been a while, obviously, unless you listened to our bonus episode about halfway through. In which case, it's only been 4 or 5 weeks for you. But if you didn't, then it's been 10 weeks, Chris, for listeners. It's 11 weeks, in fact. It's a long time. So thank you all for being patient, letting us do our little hobby podcast in the different...
Our self-indulgent rewind reviews podcast nobody listens to.
Yeah, nobody listens to, but we really enjoy doing. We're back for season 2. I mean, so from your perspective, you hinted in a previous podcast you were gonna maybe take a look at sort of rewatching some episodes or doing some sort of catch up for yourself so that you could go into season 2 a little refreshed, because there has been the gap in release is also equal to the gap in recording. You know, we stopped recording about 11-12 weeks ago, so maybe even a tiny bit longer because we took a tiny bit of time off at Christmas. So where are you? Did you manage to do that, or was the film enough? We've watched the film quite recently from listeners' perspective, from our perspective. Sorry. So I don't know.
Yeah, the film and the promo. I was like, I watched to check whether the previously on made me go, yeah, cool, and it did. So I was like, between that and the film, I was like, that's fine.
Yeah, because the film inadvertently sort of accidentally becomes a good recap in that you remember all the ways the show was better. So doing the film, you go, oh well, the show did it this way. I now remember what the show did.
yeah. You're like, what's the best version of this? If I'm watching the worst version. What's the best version? Oh yeah, it's probably that. But I wanna. Well, do you wanna recap the episode? Because I got a point that's just like raging.
Ooh, okay. So the episode is called the Avatar State, and it is the episode in which Aang reaches the edge of the Earth Kingdom, having now mastered, or being on the way to mastering water. They're making no bones about it. They're just short on time. He's not going to sit and dick about at the Water Tribe forever. So off on his earthbending adventure he goes. First stop, he meets a earthbending general who is like, look, things are bad. We don't really have the time for you to spend the traditional several years traveling the world learning your elements. This Avatar State thing seems pretty powerful. Do you mind just using it now and taking out the Fire Nation so we can all live in peace? And Aang is set up as being quite uncomfortable with that, but also understands that he's got a lot of responsibility on his shoulders and tries to go along with it. What we quickly learn is that it is utterly uncontrollable, deeply dangerous, very scary for his friends and loved ones, and can only seemingly be triggered as a genuine self-defense mechanism in very extreme circumstances. And they realize, Katara from minute one is against the idea, and Aang sort of realizes as the episode goes on the same thing. We end with them forcing it upon Aang, where they actually threaten the lives of his friends to get him to do it, and then they learn a very painful lesson in why we don't nudge the Avatar State out of Aang. The subplot involves Zuko and Iroh. They are found by Azula, who says that the Fire Lord has I've inadvertently hit on a thing from later in the fucking show by accident there. That's funny. Proper Freudian slip. The Fire Lord has basically she says that he's decided that he's forgiven Zuko. And Zuko, even though it's literally too good to be true, and Iroh knows it. Zuko kind of wants to believe that his dad would have maybe changed his mind, and they go along with it. But Iroh echoes some concerns, but it's clear goes along with it to protect Zuko and nothing more, because he is extremely suspicious. They keep giving him that side eye look every time he's anywhere near any of the Fire Nation guys. He's constantly on the. They kind of overlabor that point actually, but anyway. It very comically gets accidentally revealed that Azula is lying and that they're basically prisoners. They escape and chop off their Fire Nation-y ponytails, sort of signifying that they have truly left the fold. That doesn't necessarily, obviously, mean no longer chasing Aang, because he still believes Aang is his key to restoring his place in the homeland, but no longer affiliated in any official capacity with the Fire Nation, and morally it seems as well a little separated, because that feels like a bold choice to chop off the top knots, top knot / ponytail. So yeah, that's a rough summary of the episode, I think. Oh no, we do one other thing. We do learn that if Aang is to be killed while in the Avatar state, it would end the Avatar cycle. The Avatar would not be reborn into another person. So that's a pretty big downside to the Avatar state on top of the other stuff. So yeah, it's a slightly longer summary than I'm used to doing, but that is what happens in the episode. What do you think, Chris?
Well, my big raging thing is there's a running theme in, I think it's just the Marvel ones, but it might not be, honest trailers, that if someone says or does something stupid or is planning something stupid, it will cut back to that Robert Downey Jr. clip from the Avengers where he's holding the drink and he goes, "Not a great plan." Right. In my head, sometimes if someone says something that's not a great plan, I cut back to that in my mind.
Right.
And I just kept doing it all the time throughout this, because it's you're only gonna have him be the Avatar state on you. You're just gonna make him angry with you and fight you. There are no fire people about. This ain't a great plan. It's
not a great plan. It is a terrible plan on all fronts.
It's good drama and stuff, for the episode or whatever. That you just
but I don't think at any point because the difference, I think, is the reason I guess this doesn't enrage me is they never present it as a good plan. Well, they present it as we are fucking desperate, and this is a potential get out of jail card we could use here if we can figure this out. We could potentially end this war early. It's a. I don't think anyone in the other than the very top guy, I don't think anybody thinks this is a good plan. Even Aang is dubious from minute one. So I guess that's how it doesn't bother me. But I totally understand it, because you're right. You're just constantly this is absolutely going to backfire. You're going to get hurt, or you're going to hurt someone doing this. This is clearly not going to work. Do you know what I mean? It's from minute one.
And it's funny because now though, okay, no, let's finish that, because now that you've mapped out the episode though, I almost want to pick apart something else. Because I suppose you're right. They do make it clear. Obviously, Katara is very much the voice of the audience in that moment.
Yes.
And like I say, it is fascinating stuff. From the minute in the previously we showed him, chopping up buildings in the Avatar state before, I was like, oh, we're going to be dealing with how he feels about himself after coming out the Avatar state. And that inherently is an interesting idea.
Right.
And one I was / am keen to explore. And indeed explore more. So it is all worth it, but I just wish we could insert into the episode that Robert Downey Jr. clip.
Every time that general is and then we'll make the Avatar state happen.
Yeah.
Not a great plan.
Let's talk about, because I thought it a bit, but you really, and this isn't a criticism of you, this is the idea fleshed out enough? Kind of talked in loops where it's right, so they're not associated with the Fire Nation. They still want to get Aang to get back in with the Fire Nation, and restore honor. But nothing to do with it. So, do you think is that because of future stuff? Do we think it's not properly? Because you're right, there is a conflict between, well, if you're chopping off your hair, doing that, bold Kimberly in the Power Rangers movie haircut scene. If you're doing that and you're not a member of this tribe anymore, does that then conflict with, well, you're still going after Aang, but you were going after Aang to restore your place in the Fire Nation?
Yeah, I guess I put more on that than the episode even needs, because I guess from the episode's perspective, just this 22-minute piece of television, the ending isn't they've left the Fire Nation but still after Aang. It's more they've left the Fire Nation, and that's a big moment, you know.
It's not even like they've left the fire station. I didn't even read it particularly as they've left the fire station. I kind of read it as fuck them.
I was pretty sure. I'm pretty sure, by the way, I just misheard you, or you misspoke as fire station. I would love a
possibly, and I also said tribe, which I'm not 100% sure they're a tribe, but they are a tribe.
I could have sworn I heard you say fire station, which is amazing. He didn't rejoin the fire station. Woo! They're up to put out some fires with their fire.
They would be good, mate. They can move fire. They would be great firefighters.
You're right. Because in my head I was going, if anybody should be part of the fire station, it's the water tribe members. But you're right. Actually,
yeah, no,
they could probably just put it out or move it. Yeah, you're right. I've never thought about that, but yeah. Anyway, I guess the point the episode makes is they've hit to a point they've because it was always tense between Zuko and Iroh and the Fire Nation in the previous season, particularly when it came to Zhao. You know, they kept sort of butting heads to the point where Zuko had to break into a Fire Nation place in disguise to steal back the Avatar from his own people. You know, that relationship between him and the Fire Nation has been rocky because of his banishment from minute one, right? It feels like they have very different goals. So I guess the symbolism of this is we're not playing that game anymore. We're not going to give them our trust until like things are restored. You know, it's a question of we don't want to keep being tricked by these people. We can't trust them. I mean, my own sister just betrayed me. You know, I'm out. which I guess from Zuko is a big statement. When he spent the entire previous season talking about getting back in, the idea that he would cut off his ponytail in any way, shape, or form is heavy, right? Like that's a big deal. So yeah, I guess you're right. It is slightly muddled because as a viewer, I mean, and maybe I'm bringing future episodes of this, or maybe a viewer would think this. As a viewer, though, I feel like there's a chance you could go, yeah, but he's still going to be chasing Aang because that's part of the premise of the show. He's kind of a villain in a sort of anti-hero-y way. So, you know, does he continue to do that? But what does that say about his position at the Fire Nation? Does he just feel like, oh, right now they're against me because I'm this failed prince, but as soon as I succeed, they'll accept me back in with open arms, which is what I want. I don't know. I guess as well, there is an element of disguise about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think I read it as fuck 'em and disguise, and probably disguise more than fuck 'em, right? Actually,
which I think which I imagine.
I think you've added a lot of, without telling you what you've done or thinking for you or whatever. I think you've naturally, potentially, added a lot of other stuff to that. And obviously, you didn't expect me to fucking latch onto it and analyze it for 10-15 minutes. So do you know what I mean?
But you're not wrong to. I think there's I think there's a chance I really have sort of applied. But I just think when I rewatch the show now, I can't remember how I reacted to this the first time I saw it. But every time I watch it now, it hits me as such a powerful choice from a character that spent a season desperate to get back in the bosom of the Fire Nation to cut off that ponytail. It feels very symbolic and very powerful and quite definitive. And it's, I guess the inherent contradiction in that with Zuko is interesting to me because it is such a well done moment. So I probably am bringing a lot more to it than is there. But let's make no mistake about it though. It's the last shot of the episode. They gave it weight just in its positioning. The episode doesn't end with Aang, Katara, and Sokka flying off on Appa, to their next destination. This episode ends with Zuko and Iroh together doing that, which feels very. That's a deliberate choice.
It's almost very like, and a lot of first episodes of a season of a show that already airs are this. It's very right. We're gonna spend this episode putting our characters in their new positions for the rest of the season. And that's kind of what we've done here. We've put the sister in her position. We've put him, Zuko, and Ira in their position. We've put, to some degree, actually, there's more development with those than Aang, in a way, whilst Aang goes through this kind of avatar state dealing with that thing. The three of them haven't really changed their position. We knew where they, we knew what they were doing, and this is them doing it at the end of series one.
The two stories are doing the opposite thing in a weird way, because it feels like they're setting up the future for Azula, Zuko, and Iroh, but they're curtailing the past with Aang, because they don't want you coming into this season going, well, we just saw Aang be a giant rage monster that took out an entire army. Will there ever be threat again? So this episode feels like it exists to go, here are all the reasons he can't just always go into the Avatar state to save himself.
You mean they're not going to have just one person say the line, that's a 1 in a billion shot, like they did in Star Wars Rise of Skywalker.
Correct. They're gonna maybe do something different to that.
They're not gonna have Charlie from Lost go, yeah, can't do that every time. Wink, wink.
Well, they are, I think, yeah, but it won't even be animated. It'll be just him, and he'll be green screened badly into the episode as a person.
I want to see the inserts cut of this episode. I want to see the Snyder cut of this episode, which has Dominic Monaghan.
Mm-hmm.
Dominic Monaghan, Robert Downey Jr., all these other clips.
Just sliced in the right moments. Sliced in. Do you see what I mean though about because they do hint at where it's going. They sort of indicate that the Aang's plan is to head to, very much like last season, his intention was to head to the Northern Water Tribe to start learning waterbending. His plan here seems to be to get back to Omashu to train with Bumi, which is lovely. I think that's smart, makes sense. It's a good use of a character we already know, because you get excited, you go, oh, Bumi, that's nice. They've hinted that he's going back to Bumi, but there's still got, there's travel to be done. They're clearly on the outskirts of the war, the Earth Nation here. There's travel to be done. There's adventures to be had on the way, and that's pretty neat. I'm sort of as a viewer at this point, they do sort of set up Aang, but it's such a simple setup. It's kind of impressive that they were smart enough to go, we do also need to address this Avatar state thing, because we've just potentially given them a permanent get out of jail free card with the Avatar state at the end of the previous season, and we need to make it very clear that isn't going to be something they can just switch on when they need it.
Which shows a lot of intelligence in the writing, because
right.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't really rub up against that, and I think that's because you just accept it. Like, how many, not just in kids shows, how many superheroes how many times do you see a scene in a superhero movie where you're like, if you just do what you did half an hour ago in that other scene, you could be out of this situation. You've right. shown you've got this power that you're not using here that would help. And in kids shows in particular, fucking hell, Power Rangers, just morph. You can deal with the putties instantly. And then I tell you what, just while they're small, before Rita makes her monster grow, just get in the Megazord and squash the bastard. Alternative title to this episode, if we did alternative titles.
Just get in the Megazord and squash the bastard.
I think I'm just like...
Yeah.
I don't think they even needed to do that. I think that shows a depth of detail to this show,
right?
And to the writing specifically, that they viewed that as a question and felt the need to address that question. I think that's really amazing writing, because other shows wouldn't do it.
Exactly, and to be fair, and I think the other shows wouldn't do it because they I think you get away with it, and you are only just getting away with it. But the reason you didn't when watching. Because there are multiple times in Steven Universe that you talked about giving certain characters certain powers, diminished threat. It was one of the first things you complained about, actually. It was one of the... I remember specifically when they explained shapeshifting in Steven Universe, you were like, well, they've explained it as they can shapeshift into literally anything. How is that not the solution to every single problem going forward? You know, you laid that out. The reason you didn't have that trouble with the first season of Avatar The Last Airbender is they did a really good job, even though they never, I don't think, ever said it out loud, but demonstrating visually, Aang was never in control of when it happened and how it happened, and that it was very connected to his emotions. That is enough, I think, to make you go, well, then you can't just throw himself into the center of the Fire Nation and turn that on. Cool. You know? Like, but what I think is clever here is the other side of that coin, which the average person doesn't think of, is okay, but all right, he's not gonna throw himself into the Fire Nation and hope that it turns on. But next time he's in a really dangerous situation, won't that just turn on every time? By doing this episode and explaining there's risk to it, there's also got to be emotion involved. They gave it so many more dimensions. Now it's really not an option. Like, you just know that at no point are they going to be able to rely on that. Not just because of its inconsistency, the fact it won't always activate when they want it to, but also that they won't even be able to control who suffers at the hands of it when it's on. Like, and then also the extra risk of if Aang goes into the Avatar state and someone beats him, there's no Avatar forever. Like, that's a big
reveal.
That's a big reveal, but also like a big condition of that power. So they really, like, it was like they wanted absolutely no doubt in your mind as to why this isn't used and when this isn't used. And that's super smart. Like, as you said, it shows a real intelligence to the writing. Like, they'd already kind of done enough, but they just really wanted to do it right. And that is pretty amazing.
In terms of the Steven Universe comparison, though, let's not rule out me just being less of a pedantic arsehole with animation now, though. Like, that's also a possibility, Dan.
Yeah, I guess. But as I said to you at the time, I didn't think that was a completely invalid thought. I kind of agreed with you.
No,
definitely.
No.
It's one of those things where there are definitely going to be situations in the future where you would know in the back of your mind whether you were willing to live and let live or not, where you were going to go, huh.
I think you're absolutely right with everything you've just said.
Yeah.
What do you think about, because it's such a simple idea, but like, I just love the idea of, right, you know, let's not repeat ourselves. And I mean this as a compliment. It's going to sound like I'm being sarcastic. I'm not. I love the idea of, like, right, let's not repeat ourselves. What can we do to make the sister different? I got an eye. You got an eye? Tim, you got an eye? Tim, you got your hand raised? Let's have it, Tim. Oh, well, it might be a bit... No, go for it, Tim. No, don't worry about it. Okay.
No wrong answers.
Give her lightning powers. Done. Tim's got it. Lightning. Well done, that man. Like, Tim fucks off home for a week. Like, I'm serious. Like, I just think that was really, really cool to go, right, because obviously she is a different character, because it's a completely different relationship with the Fire Nation and the Fire Lord, which makes for interesting television. You know, it's not, I didn't feel, even at the end of series 1 when she was sort of reintroduced, as technically she'd been seen before, I didn't feel like we were going to repeat ourselves, but just like the extra panache, the extra cool visual of you know, the Emperor lightning powers is really cool. I liked it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and it's actually something they teased in the previous season. I think there's a comment from Iroh about firebenders manipulating lightning. It's not something they introduced here. It's something they very clearly like laid the groundwork for in the previous season, which is kind of genius. So it's amazing. And I will say there's a running thing with this show which I think is always really cool, which is like they do find, like in the real world, there are skills we all have, and some people are so vastly beyond the average that they can do extra shit. Does that make sense?
Me with butter.
Exactly. Yes. Chris with butter. For those who don't know, on our YouTube channel, find a video that's called Chris Billingham, King of Butter, and you'll know what we're talking about. But it's only like 5-10 minutes long, I think, but it's well worth checking out if you've not heard that clip. So the show acknowledges that, and there are certain benders in this show that can do things with their bending beyond the obvious. because they're so good at it, right? So, yeah, you wouldn't expect people who can manipulate fire to be able to manipulate lightning, but if it's creating that spark and igniting the air, and you think, well, maybe they could generate that kind of energy and focus that energy the same way that Bender could, but only if you were, like, fucking amazing at it. That's really smart and kind of genius. And they do that with pretty much all of them. You know, over time, like they'll introduce all sorts of characters that have abilities that may surprise you. You know, beyond the basic bending. And I think that is a really great way of spicing up the action of the show, but also a really great way of making Azula seem like a mega threat, like straight away. She's not fucking about. She's not Zuko baby training with his learning how to do fire. No. She's a few steps above that with her lightning.
Definitely.
So it's a pretty incredible power, and it makes her a big threat. And then it also, I think the episode does a great job of both making her a physical threat and a threat intelligence-wise as well. She seems way cleverer. Like, any idiot villain would have barged in there and tried to capture Zuko, but she was like, I don't need to do that. I know my brother well enough. All he wants to hear is that Dad's accepted him back. No, I don't even need to fight him. I'm lazier than that. I'm smarter than that. Fight smart, not hard. I'm just going to go in there and trick this fucker. And the only reason that plan doesn't succeed is because that dude blows it. You know, like, she's a big threat. And what a great introduction for a character.
She's just so manipulating. That's the word I'd use.
Yes.
And I look forward to that's... manipulation is always a good villain trait, I think. It always helps make villains threatening because like you say, it's fundamentally using intelligence as the threat, not as opposed to might or strength or anything.
Right.
Speaking of firebenders having other skills, how come we didn't see Iroh use his magic creating fire from his hands skills in this episode, Dan?
Yeah, it's well, you know, Chris, it's one of those things where certain things in the movie make no sense, and also the moon was gone. Maybe that may be related. Who knows?
Something much like the movie, just something to do with the moon.
There's something in the moon. I don't know powers, but he can create. Other people for some reason can't. I mean, going forward, how, like, I mean, do you think they did a good enough job here with Azula, like, to make you accept her as, like, the threat she needs to be for this? Because it's a hard job. You've got 22 minutes, half of which has to be dedicated to Aang. You know, you've only got so many minutes to get Azula into this episode because of the structure. How effective were they at making you excited for the threat of Azula across this season?
Very. But I think, you know what? I think part of that is they've, again, it's really clever writing and a really clever choice to kind of, and how much this was deliberate thought, I don't know, but to go, okay, we've done quite a bit between sort of his regret, talking about the brother now,
Zuko.
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 You always say "ooh" at the end instead of "oh." It's quite amusing. It's this podcast's laughs. Yeah. Because Zuko is such a cute name. It's like little Zuko, and every time you say it, I just imagine like baby Zuko, like little Zuko.
Old Zuki Poos. They've done such a good job.
Oh, dude! If you can't call him Fire Dude forever, old Zuki Poos is the name.
I forgot about maybe we should evolve with it, and I should go from Fire Dude to old Zuki Poos. It's got to be old though.
Baby Zuki Poos.
I really like old Zuki Poos, but equally, I know a lot of people love Fire Dude. We'll see what happens naturally.
We do get comments where people are like, "You better call him Fire Dude and Uncle Fire Dude till the end of the show."
Yeah. Old Zuki Poo's Fire Dude is. Maybe
we shouldn't stick to that because it's almost too good. Like, I feel like we'll never discuss the show again.
Yeah, there's just 40 episodes of us debating what to call him. We get cast members on, we get their view. And then we finish recording with them, and we're like, "Wow, we wasted a real opportunity then to talk about the show." Oh, well.
We get on the writers of the cast and all that, and then we just ask them what they think of the name Zuki Poos, and no other questions.
old fire dude of Zuki Poos is they've done such a good job with kind of between all the we've got to carry on because if we don't power through, Dan.
Come on, let's not fall into the trap we fall into recent podcasts of making them too long. Let's focus. Come on, Chris. God damn it.
Right.
You're acting like a child. Keep laughing. It's not that funny.
Old Zuki Poos of fire, dude. They've done such a good job with him. They've done such a good job with him of, the we could be friends, the blue spirit, his relationship with the Fire Nation.
Right.
If they didn't introduce the sister, you'd almost be going, he's probably going to turn, isn't he? Now, I don't know whether he will turn. I suspect he might, or just, there will be shadings with him at the very least.
Between, he's he's sort of a complex shade of grey, isn't he? And he does have a morality to him, but he is also been very clearly positioned as wanting to capture Aang and bring glory to Fire Nation, which is bad. So he's a very complicated character, and I honestly I don't think I would like a complete turn either way for him ever, because I think. No,
you want him to be Draco, don't you?
Maybe not quite Draco, because I still feel like Draco leans negative, even in the end. Whereas I like this middle ground Zuko. That's like he's gonna do what he thinks is right in any given situation, and while morality plays a little part in it, he's gonna do what he thinks is correct. This is a good place for him.
It's really, by negative, do you mean Harry's side or He Must Not Be Named side?
He must not be named, son. He's still pretty bastardy.
Even to the end.
He's still
because it's actually his mum who helps Harry, not Draco.
Right. Yeah. Why can we never get through an episode of this without referencing Harry Potter? Someone put a comment a couple of weeks back that was just like, "You guys should just do a Harry Potter podcast already, just to stop bringing it up during other podcasts."
I think, unfortunately, outside forces have lessened our enthusiasm for that.
I would love to do a podcast analysing that series, both the films and the books. I even was at one point planning that my magnum opus of videos would one day be me going through all the reasons I think the films fail those books. But I don't even want to do it now, because the comment section alone fucking terrifies me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm aware I used the same phrase to describe to clarify, J.K. Rowling didn't put Dan and I in a bad mood today in general. I don't want, she's at fault for a lot of things. It's not her fault, we're busy. Anyway, Prince Fire Dude of Zuki Poos. Because they've done such a good job with him, yes, they have made me excited for her. I'm an easy get, though. All they really needed to do was go, oh yeah, you're a bit wavering on him. Badass, just outright after Aang. I think you kind of have two choices: introduce another, or make Fire Dude more central. But I think the lightning powers, her manipulation, all the stuff we've talked about. I'm pumped. I'm pumped for her. I look forward to. I hope they show us the detective in her. They did that really well with Fire Dude of Zuki Poos. We saw him trailing them. And we saw how he found out where they were, etc. Let's see a bit of that. I want to get to her going after Aang more than I want her going after Fire Dude and Zuki Poos.
That's interesting, because I kind of thought the way they set this up, I was kind of I feel like, and again, it's hard to remember the first time watching it because I've seen it so many times. It's trickier here than it is on other stuff we do, where to remember initial reaction, just because of the sheer number of times. But I feel like my first
number of times you've watched it,
because my first impression, my impression of my first impression, I think I kind of was excited to see her continue to face off against Zuko, because the dynamic created here. And the evil of just the manipulation, but also just the sheer cruelty of her being as if Dad would ever want you back, you fucking loser. She really gets to him. That's a personal relationship that she doesn't have with Aang.
Yeah, and I would love that too, right. But I don't want too much of it, because how many shows have had characters and stories blending and together and be one thing, and then split them up and you not go, oh, just fucking bring them back together.
Right.
Lost, Stranger Things. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would be excited to explore that too, definitely. But I don't really want a season of 2 separate stories. And whilst in series 1, there is obviously a lot of 2 separate stories, they cross over a fair bit as well, because fundamentally, Zuko the fire dude is after Aang.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we should move, because we haven't really talked about the other side of the plot as much at all. We've properly got into the Fire Nation stuff, but to sort of come back to our heroes this week. Just
not a great plan.
So what was that, sorry?
Not a great plan.
Not a great plan, no. But again, I understand why this episode exists. It does. It does exist to sort of assuage any like people thinking just use the fire state. The Avatar state. See, I still can't get off the Fire Nation. Just use the Avatar state going forward. Like it does do a really good job of that, and also it does act as like a really good re-establishing of the dynamics. Not so much Sokka. Sokka's the character that gets underplayed here a lot. Which is a shame, but there's a lot going on, so it's understandable. Someone had to lose out in this episode, so Sokka was the.
The advantage of Sokka, though, is if you don't have Sokka doing much in an episode development-wise, you can use him for gags, because there's 2 great ones. There's the opening, where he doesn't get a gift, which is very
did
funny.
Make me chuckle, yeah.
And then there's Aang waking up and being like, I've changed my mind. I don't think we should entice the Avatar state. And Sokka just going, yeah, all right then.
Well, I thought you were going to go to the second joke. I thought you were going to go to when Sokka bonks the guy on the head and is like, anyone got a problem with that? And they're like, no.
Oh, that was brilliant as well. Yeah. So they really, the way that character's written is very clever.
It is, because
even if he's not got an arc,
yes,
you can still make him memorable, because
he can be funny.
He could be funny.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, they do. But in terms of character arcs, he gets a bit underserved. I kind of like what they did with Katara in this episode. There's one element of it that bothered me slightly. So I wrote in my notes early on that when the first time she talks with him after the Earth guy, I wrote his name down and I've forgotten it. General Fong. When Fong first suggests inducing the Avatar state, she has a conversation with Aang where she expresses her concerns. And then he says, Aang's like, we've got to do it. There's people's lives at stake, And she just goes with it. Like, it's like, here's me disagreeing with you, but I'm still going to stand by you, personally, because, we're friends, and also, like, I respect you as the Avatar. So it's a nice moment. They kind of undo it a little bit later when she chooses not to be part of it anymore, but it's after a much deeper conversation, which is, I suppose, how they explain it. But it's because I wrote in my notes, it's great that she still stands with him even though she disagrees, and then I was like, edit, nope, she bones out, forgot about her leaving him later. I put that in my notes.
Although the boning out isn't even my thing about that scene. Let's do it, Dan. We've done it. We've done it on Steven Universe. We've not done it as much on this. Here we go, people. Let's talk ships, Dan.
Right.
Because as I would assume any shippers of Aang and Katara, it's quite a tricky scene in a way, because
Katang. I don't know what they called it, but I'm going to assume Katang.
Katang. Yeah. Because she tells him she loves him in it. She says it's really hard for those that love you to watch you be in all that pain. And It's interesting because usually if you're doing the is it romantic friend thing, you don't do you tend not to see scenes like that, because I watch that scene and I'm like, well, that's 2 friends talking. Do you know what I mean? You don't casually, if you're secretly in love with a friend, you don't casually talk about loving them, because it's wrapped up in all this other stuff. They come across as family in that scene. So I don't know whether shippers would have got excited because they're like, oh, that's her admitting, she loves him, or whether actually it's like, ooh, that felt pretty friend family zone ish.
Yeah.
I like the conversation. I like how it was. I like that reading of them as family. I'm not really shipping them. I'm not particularly.
Yeah,
shipping them too hard. But I loved that scene and thought it was a really good conversation and really nice.
Yeah,
but
me too.
would it have bothered some of the audience that wanted their relationship to be more romantic?
Yeah, I see that. I do. I think it's that the episode just needed to focus. I don't even think that the writers were making like a deliberate choice to not do that. It was more they were just choosing to focus on the fact that she was talking in general, wasn't she? Because when she says that, she doesn't say I, she says the people who, talking about a wider group. And as a result of that phrasing, you don't even necessarily expect him to blush slightly, you know. Well, you might think it, but like it doesn't need it, and it would also, I think, distract from the sequence there, because his response to that is quite earnest. It's thank you for telling me. Like he's glad she felt she could confide her fears in him, because obviously he, at the start of the episode, they have like 2 or 3 really sweet conversations in this. The very earliest one is when he tells her that he's almost scared of himself when he's in the Avatar state, and that's a really beautiful scene as well. And this is kind of the counterpart to that, where she admits to him she's also a little afraid of him in that state, and that it's scary for her as a loved one, and everyone else who cares for Aang. And I think that's quite weirdly brave, because he's already concerned about that. So the fact that she feels confident to tell him she kind of agrees and feels that way, she's almost like she's reinforcing a fear he has, but she's doing it for his own good, and it's she doesn't do it with any compunction. She doesn't hesitate. She tells him honestly, and that's really important. I think it's a really important scene, and I do think you might undercut it slightly if you were to play the love stuff alongside it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. I completely agree. Someone
they get the best of both here because of that phrasing of we. You don't need necessarily the reaction, which allows them to get away with it, I think. But yeah, you're right though. I could see somebody coming away from this sequence and being a bit disappointed they didn't have Aang blush or something in that moment, and they could have. I do think it would have hurt the scene though.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
No, I think it's much better as it is. I just would, but again, I don't mind the read of them being family. I'm not too hardcore on they must end up together. So it would be interesting. I could see someone that perhaps was a bit more so being a bit like, oh,
yeah. Well, while we're just sort of like covering that side of the plot, there's 2 things that like I really want to compliment, but I don't have a lot to say on because they don't really add a lot to the like. It's more interesting to talk about the depth of the characters and the interesting stuff like that, what we've just been discussing. But I do want to compliment both the montage of them attempting to get Aang into the Avatar state, where they put him in like ridiculous clothes and try all this insane stuff. That was just infinitely amusing. The outfit particularly was my favorite, I think. It's just fucking bonkers. And then the other sequence I want to compliment them on, but it doesn't add, it's like not a big dramatic thing. Well, it's kind of dramatic, but it's more about the action, which is when the Earthbenders are all instructed to basically fight Aang. Both sections of that fight are amazing, both when they're just fighting him and when they drag Katara into it to threaten her, like to set him into the Avatar state, and then the drama of when he goes into it and how much destruction he sows. All beautifully animated, super exciting. Like the moment when they run up the walls and they slash those 2 swords at Aang and he flips through them, such a simple thing, it just looks incredible. Like,
yeah, it was awesome. There's almost 2 fight scenes going on as well, because there's all the wicked stuff on the Fire Nation side as well. Like that whole fight portion of the episode was wicked.
Yeah, and I think it's the cool thing about the Fire Nation one is it's got all the Earth Kingdom fight is got all the emotional tension of Aang having his loved ones threatened. And the Fire Nation one has got the emotional tension of Zuko having to fight his way out, having realized his dad doesn't want to accept him back, and the opposite might be true. He's actually fuming with both Zuko and Iroh, like while having to defend himself and be taunted by Azula. It's like there's a lot going on. This episode is so many moving parts. It's kind of a miracle it works at all, I think talking generally, like it's I think on the whole, right, it's good. Like it's a brilliant episode. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. I think it's a great episode, but also my table just pinged. By the way, sorry if that made a weird noise. It's also a great season opener.
Right.
It's a great. Let's explore some interesting stuff. Let's not forget about this huge part of the finale, the Avatar state. let's explore that, but let's also set the new status quo for the season going forward. I think it's a very effective episode.
Yeah. Other quick notes. The whole tides scene where we introduce Azula is amazing. We can't go in because of the tides. Let me ask you this: do the tides command this ship?
Yeah.
Fuck me. Incredible. Family sticks together. Very clear. I love that. We know Iroh is only coming along to protect Zuko. I think that just his choice to come along and be like, even though we know he knows this is a trap, is beautiful. It's truly.
But also his choice to keep protecting him after he shits on him, and it's like, you're jealous of your brother and all of that sort of stuff. Like, he puts up with a lot of shit, that character, and you can't help but have respect for him, even though he's arguably not on the side you should be supporting.
Yeah, Iroh is an incredible character. Like Zuko, sort of his positioning is tricky because he's essentially. But again, what's great about the show is it's never black and white. Like, there are people in the Fire Nation who are good, there are people on the other side that are bad. It's just including fucking this general from this episode. That's clear. He's a douchebag. You wouldn't be surprised if he was on the other side. So yeah, it's one of those things. The we're taking the prisoners home moment, and Azula's face is stunning. It's funny, but also like gut wrenching, and like, whoop, you can just know it's all about to kick off. Wonderful. I just want to make sure we cover all the like little moments that I thought were great, because people will comment underneath that we didn't. Threatening Katara, obviously brutal but effective, but also stupid. I literally wrote that in my notes. Clearly, he cannot control it. We got a glimpse of some old avatars. I thought that was really cool. When we haven't even talked about this. When he has his little spirit vision where he meets Roku, and Roku's explaining that if he dies in the avatar state, we get all these little flashes, and we get to see Roku, Kyoshi, Kuruk, Yang Chen, the previous airbending one, and then I always forget the fucking last, the other firebending dude, Seto. Seto.
In general, like, I know you touched upon it earlier, but that notion, that idea that if you die in the avatar state, then the power of rebirth is gone, is so powerful. And so, like, you got to assume no one else knows that, and you're like, oh god, if they could find that out, like, that's a game changer. Like,
correct,
because they've said before, haven't they, there's been scenes in this show where they haven't killed Aang, because I think Fire Dude or the other general just made the point, well, it just starts the cycle over again, and we'll be back here, a few years later.
Zhao said that in the previous season. He captured Aang and was like, we're not going to kill you. Killing you you'd be born elsewhere. So it's clear they don't at present know that, because otherwise they'd have induced the avatar state with him and like tried to murder him that way, presumably. So should we move on to the triv?
Yeah, man. Hit me with the triv.
Not a huge amount, but there's a little triv. So this is the first episode where he's seen earthbending at all. Obviously, he hasn't learned earthbending yet, but of course, what we learn in this episode, which we kind of already knew, but the avatar state is essentially him tapping into the knowledge and power of all the previous avatars who were all fully trained. So in the avatar state, he is able to bend other elements. It's almost outside of himself, though. It's not really Aang doing it. Aang has not yet learned earthbending, but previous lives all did, so he could do it in that moment, and it's a really cool sequence, and it is the first time we have seen him earthbend. He used a similar move with airbending in this episode that he used to raise himself with waterbending in the Avatar Returns. So in the Avatar Returns, which is the second episode, when he's on the boat with Zuko and he sort of shoots himself up, he uses air to do it in that one. No, he uses water to do it in that one while in the avatar state, and he used airbending to do it here. So it was like the same technique, but just a different element being used. In the scene where Azula's ship captain accidentally reveals that Zuko and Iroh are prisoners, the creators originally planned for Azula to vaporize the man on the spot, which is amazing. But they decided against that, and this is in quote marks, because that was a little harsh.
I mean, definitely.
Slightly. In the beginning of the episode, we see Master Paku, but he's wearing different clothes to the last time we saw him. It's because they've been on a ship that's gone out from the Northern Water Tribe, slightly warmer climate, adjusted outfit. I thought that was just a nice touch, because usually with these sort of shows, they don't bother animating new outfits of people, because that's a lot of work. Especially for one shot, basically, of Paku sending them on his way, like one scene. But they did. That's a nice little bit of detail.
Definitely.
Zuko and Ira cutting their hair parallels the story of Buddha, who, when starting his journey of self-discovery and enlightenment, cut off his hair beside a river in a similar way. And the writing on Zuko's knife, which I believe is Japanese text. I didn't double check that, but it appeared to be Japanese text to me. But forgive me if I'm incorrect. But apparently, if you translate it, it means never give up without a fight.
Nice touch.
Yeah, and then the final piece of trivia, and this is something that I've saved for the end, just because we haven't really mentioned this guy, but this Sifu Kisu, I think his name is a martial artist who actually did a lot of the martial arts that was filmed with a camera, like traditionally, that they then animated based on. So he actually single-handedly developed the fighting styles of all the nations, and he basically made each nation based on an actual martial art and a different one. Well, I mean, I assume the idea maybe came from the creators, Michael and Bri, as we've now dubbed them, but Mikey and Bri, and with little baby Zuzu, or whatever we're calling him now. Anyway, but obviously he with them developed that, and they would film him with a camera, and then they would play that back for the animators, and they'd look at it frame by frame, and that's why the fighting in the show always feels very authentic. So he's a huge part of why the action in the show is so good, and why each bending, each tribe has such a distinct way of moving when they're bending. So he's a massive part of why this show's great, and we haven't really shouted him out previously. The reason I'm mentioning him now is because he revealed that the footage of the fight scene between Zuko and Azula wasn't actually filmed in their normal studio. They had to film it slightly outside of that, in like a corridor or something next to a statue of SpongeBob. So in the footage they used to do this dramatic fight, there is a SpongeBob statue in frame. I just imagine that being amazing. Slightly distracting for the animators, but there you go.
Again, Snyder cut. Restore the SpongeBob.
Yeah, restore the SpongeBob shot, along with adding the the shot of Robert Downey Jr. and what's his
Dominic
face?
Monaghan.
Dominic Monaghan. Yeah, so there you go. Great episode. Excited for the season. How are you feeling?
Very
pumped?
excited, pumped. I was almost. We've been away from it for so long, and we've been doing a lot of other podcasts, and we've had a lot of. We're always Dan and I. Here's the thing, people. For 6 years now, Dan and I have been always watching something. We're always watching something for the podcast. Even when we're something recently that I watched, which I won't say, it'll become clear why. Which wasn't watching it for the podcast. Dan and I haven't really discussed the show. Jess fancied watching it. I was intrigued. We watched it. That wasn't for the podcast. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, cool, this gives me an easy show to suggest next time we do forced reviews. Because I know you haven't seen it, and I have already seen it and wouldn't need to rewatch it. So even when we're not watching for the podcast, we're watching for the podcast. Yeah. So I haven't devoted a lot of thinking time to Avatar. So I was like, oh God, am I gonna? And I've been really enjoying Rewind reviews. So I'm like, is it gonna take me a bit to get back into this? But no, pretty much, within 5 minutes, I'm like, oh no, we're back, we're good, we're home.
It's easy to forget your excitement when you've not done it for 11 weeks. But coming back to it, you go, oh yeah, this is great. I forgot how much I love this show. Yeah, 100%. Would you like the listener question for the week, Chris?
I would love it now.
So for those who haven't listened to Rewind Reviews, we've introduced a new element where if you're a patron, you can ask us a question. So if you want to be a patron, go to patreon.com/NothingButStatic, and you too can ask us a question and get a little shout out, just like our boy Avishai? Avishai. I think I've pronounced that right, and if I haven't, I'm very sorry. Who asked us, Katara versus Lapis, waterbending battle, who wins?
What, are you crazy? Lapis. Like, I don't... Not a debate, is it?
I agree. Lapis has the ability to like almost harden the water into like harden the water into like blades and stuff. We've seen her.
I just mean she's my girl. I'm biased. I'm
right.
Always going Lapis.
But she can terraform a whole planet. Like she does. She made the ocean go away. I don't think Katara can do that.
Lapis has those gem powers that, and Katara is learning her skills and honing them.
But also, Lapis is basically immortal, isn't she? Like, I mean, gems, like you kill them, they just come back a few hours later or whatever. Like, she seems much stronger. She has way more like power than even I think the strongest waterbender in the world of Avatar, because she's supposed to be a terraformer. She's supposed to be able to shape entire planets. So she can do that. Which
she's
is very
another
powerful,
good example of like they had to write around the fact that Lapis could solve most problems in that show.
Yeah, they haven't had to yet write around the fact Katara can do it. So like it's it's a great question, but I think the answer is clear.
Yeah, like also like Lapis can drag water from other planets. Fundamentally, Katara needs to have a bottle of water handy to get her powers going. So I think
Katara's not dropping a barn on anyone's head.
Yeah, in a fight
or flying.
Lapis in a fight. Yeah, completely. Yeah. Like Lapis can fly.
I forgot about
that. In a fight, Lapis would win. In terms of my affections, Lapis wins. Yeah.
KO. Lapis wins. I'm up for more of these though. If anyone wants to like throw
great question.
It's a brilliant question, and I'm up for more of these verses. If anyone wants to in the questions be like this character versus this character, I am well up for that. Please, that's fun. That's a fun situation. But yeah, I think it's very clear in that case, Lapis wins. So, wrapping things up, always send some love to Raphodraws. Instagram.com/Raphodraws. She's an amazing artist. She did the sort of the title image of this. If you're looking at this on Spotify or whatever, that image of Appa with the gang is from Rapho, and it's a beautiful piece of art, and has become sort of like the icon for this show. And I think it's a massive thank you for letting us use it.
Yeah, to clarify for the whole podcast. So not if you're watching on YouTube, not the thumbnail for the episode, the logo and the graphic for the entire podcast.
Yeah, the logo that comes with the podcast. If you get it on like an audio platform, that's the image we're referring to, which does also show up in the video version, but it's not the thumbnail. So yeah, absolutely. Rapho does some amazing stuff. And if you go to launchlinks.io/u/Raphodraws, you can get access to like, I think there's like a Redbubble account and a bunch of other stuff where you can buy like mugs and stuff with Rapho's various art. But just go support Rapho. Rapho does some really good stuff. Rapho's also been working on a comic book that looks amazing, and I've still not read, and I'm annoyed with myself that. But at some point, I'm gonna purchase and read the graphic novel. It sounds really interesting. So support Rapho. Obviously, you can get us in all the other usual places, youtube.com/nothingbutstatic if you want to watch the video version of this, although I will admit there are very few visuals added to this. So if you're listening to this on audio platforms, don't bother. But you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and get our thoughts on other things, such as we're doing videos on Infinity Train. We have the Ramble Logs now where we talk on a random subject. They've stopped for a little while because I've been busy the last couple of weeks, but they are coming back. I'm covering Book 4 of Infinity Train as we speak. That launched literally today, the day we're recording this, and I'm very excited. So yeah, tons of things you can do. Also Twitter, @Dan_Doolan, and Chris is @CBillingham with 2 M's. You can tell us how much you liked or hated this podcast. Also, you can subscribe and like and comment below. That all helps too, even if your comment just says whatever new name we've invented for Prince Zuko this week, which I've already forgotten, which is bad. Baby something?
Zuki Poo's the fired.
Zuki Poo's. Yeah, just comment Zuki Poos because the comments help. Or head to your podcast app of choice and review us. And in the review, put Zuki Poos. Just one word, Zuki Poos, and hit 5 stars. Obviously, we've earned it. But but the review itself can just say Zuki Poos. So there you go. That is everything for this week. I don't actually have the title for the next episode up in front of me, but I'm going to pull it up now so that we can do our normal ending.
It's called Zuki Poos and the Philosopher's Stone.
Zuki Poos and the Philosopher's Stone. But thank you so much for listening, guys. I've been Dan Doolan.
Oh, we go with that. You're not looking it up.
No, I've got it. I've just found it. I found it while
okay,
you.
cool.
I found it while you did that. So
Cool. Good. Carry on.
So I'm Dan Doolan.
I'm Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you next time when we come back to discuss The Cave of Two Lovers. Ooh. Little tease for that one, Chris. The words
Love the
secret
lovers.
tunnel.
Ooh. It's beginning to sound like a different show altogether.
It gets a different rating next week.
Zuki poos.
I'm so glad you didn't include baby that time.
I've never included baby. That was you. I was always old Zuki poos or Zuki poos the fire dude.
Little baby Zuki poos. Right, let's go. Please, anyone, goodbye.
Bye.